Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Daybreak, voting begins for Korea's largest ever by-elections. 15 districts are up for grabs in what pundits are dubbing a mini general election. Korea's main stock market finishes at its highest close since August 2011 as positive economic indicators and the government's massive stimulus plan boost investor sentiment. Plus, the United States and the European Union announced sweeping new sanctions against Russia as they look to increase the cost to Russia of its continued support for pro-Moscow rebels in eastern Ukraine. Daybreak begins now.
Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, July 30th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you are tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, polling stations have just opened in 15 districts around the country for Korea's largest ever by-elections. Koreans living in the contested areas can cast their vote at polling booths set up in the 15 electoral districts. From 6 a.m. now until 8 p.m. Korea time, political watchers have dubbed these elections a mini general election that will serve as a mid-term referendum on President Park Geun-hye's Conservative administration. Now, these by-elections come hot on the heels of the local elections in early June, in which neither the ruling nor the main opposition party claimed a clear-cut victory. The voter turnout during the two-day early voting period that ended Saturday was just shy of 8%, which is a record for early voting in by-elections. Now, it's hard to say who's going to come out smiling once the results are out later this evening, because there are a variety of political alliances at play and also the ferry accident probe. These are a number of factors that are making half of the races too close to call. Our Chae-sun has more.
The ruling and main opposition parties believe they each have the upper hand in securing 3 of the 15 parliamentary seats up for grabs in Wednesday's by-elections. As for the remaining 9 seats, 6 of which are in Seoul and the surrounding area, the election will likely go down to the wire. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy's united front with the Minor Justice Party in the much-contested Dongjak-B district in Seoul, as well as 2 constituencies in Suwon, Gyeonggi-do province, have turned the tables on the ruling Saenuri Party. While it remains unclear how the political alliances will affect voter sentiment, the ruling party spent its final day of campaigning highlighting its push to breathe new life into the local economy.
We ask you to elect candidate number 1 of the ruling party, who will work for the region, work for the nation to revitalize the economy.
The police and prosecution's failure to arrest Yoo Byung-un, the practical owner of the mismanaged ferry that sank in April while he was still alive, and questions that remain surrounding Yoo's death have also become a hot potato in the upcoming elections.
The main opposition party is the force that can hold the Park Geun-hye administration in check. We earnestly ask that you give us the strength to contain the incompetent and irresponsible ruling power.
It's voter turnout, however, that will ultimately decide which party will come out the victor on Wednesday. The scorching heat and voting day falling on peak vacation season will likely affect the turnout. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
And as we just heard there in Yu-sun's report, the fallout from the Sewol ferry disaster continues to hang over Korean politics. The actual investigation into the ferry sinking goes on as well and is centering on 2 main areas. Firstly, there's the ferry operator and its corrupt business practices, but also the poor emergency response that failed far too many young lives. And it was on that front that we saw the first arrest of a Coast Guard official on Tuesday. Our Park Ji-won reports.
Prosecutors arrested the captain of a Coast Guard patrol boat that was tasked with saving lives from the then sinking Sewol ferry in mid-April. The Gwangju District Prosecutor's Office, which has been proving the Coast Guard on the Sewol ferry disaster, arrested the 53-year-old fisher, identified only by his family name Kim, on Tuesday. Kim was the chief of the Mokpo Coast Guard's patrol boat at the time of the disaster and is alleged to have ripped off official work records and fabricated new records that same day. The prosecution suspects he did so to cover up errors committed by the Coast Guard in its initial response to the ferry disaster. If he's found to be responsible for the failed rescue operation, during which only victims who were in the water were saved, prosecutors say they would consider charging Kim with negligent homicide. It's the first time authorities have taken into custody a Coast Guard official who was engaged in rescue operations at the disaster scene and comes amid mounting criticism of the maritime agency. Student survivors of the accident providing testimony in court on Tuesday against the sunken ferry's captain and crew members said there appeared to be more fishermen involved in the rescue operation than Coast Guard officials. They told a panel of judges they want those responsible within the Coast Guard to be punished severely. Sewol Captain Lee Jun-seok and 14 of his crew are currently on trial, accused of charges ranging from negligence to homicide. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's main stock market, the benchmark Kospi, hit a 3-year high on Tuesday, topping the 2,060 mark. Analysts say positive economic indicators, the government's latest stimulus package, and very good data out of China boosted investor sentiment. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Korea's benchmark Kospi peaked on Tuesday to end at 2,061, its highest closing mark since August 2011. The rise was mainly due to strong foreign buying. Foreign investors have bought almost $550 million worth of Korean shares over the past week, as their reluctance to buy Korean shares has somewhat waned. Up until now, foreign investors were reluctant to buy Korean shares due to the country's heavy reliance on the Chinese economy and uncertainties over Korea's economic policy direction. China recorded growth of 7.5% in the second quarter of this year, up 0.1 percentage point from the previous quarter, buoyed by stimulus measures from Beijing.
The Chinese economy seems to be starting to recover from its down cycle of less than 8% growth in recent months. But the main trigger has been Korea's new economic team, led by Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan, and the stimulus measures to revitalize the economy.
Despite the record-breaking gains, Korean stocks recorded the lowest price gains compared to 6 other emerging markets in Asia. The Kospi has risen less than 2% this year, a stark contrast to India's 23% and Taiwan's near 10% rise. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, Korea logged a current account surplus for the 28th straight month. In June, the Bank of Korea says the total came to slightly over $7.9 billion last month. That pushed the current account balance for the first half of the year to an all-time high of $39.2 billion. That's a 25% increase year on year. The nation's current account balance has been in the black since March 2012. That's the second longest stretch since Korea posted a surplus for 38 consecutive months in the late 1980s. Exports of display panels and semiconductors both rose more than 10% in June from a year earlier. And Korea's business sentiment is forecast to hit a 6-month low, in fact, in August. The Federation of Korean Industries says Korea's 600 biggest companies by sales are actually disappointed by the sluggish rate of the economic recovery and the unstable consumer sentiment here in Korea. The business survey index rebounded after February, but started to go on a downward trend following the tragic ferry disaster in April. The Federation attributes the fall to the frail economic indices, including the second quarter growth rate, which hit a 7-quarter low, and a 15-month low consumer index in July.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
South Korea will press ahead with a decade-old agreement under which the US military headquarters in the heart of Seoul will be relocated south of the capital. The Defense Ministry said that it could also include the Korea-US Combined Forces Command, but a decision has yet to be made on that. However, the ministry says the two countries are reviewing various ways to boost their joint combat readiness after the relocation process is complete. In 2004, the two allies agreed to relocate the Yongsan base to Pyeongtaek, some 70 kilometers south of the capital, by the end of 2016. The families of Japanese nationals abducted by North Korea in the 1970s and 80s may soon have word on whether or not their long-lost relatives are alive and well in the north. Japanese wire service Jiji Press reports that Keiji Furuya, Japan's minister in charge of the North Korean abduction issue, said Tokyo expects to receive the preliminary results of Pyongyang's investigation into the abductees by late August or early September. Following an agreement reached in Stockholm in late May, North Korea set up a special committee to carry out a fresh probe into the fate of the abductees. This was in return for Japan promising to lift some of its unilateral sanctions imposed over North Korea's missile and nuclear activities. The Japanese minister added that Tokyo will continue to press North Korea on this issue until all of the abductees are returned home. The United Nations has made another move that is sure to enrage North Korea. The UN Security Council's Sanctions Committee has voted to blacklist the operator of a North Korean ship seized last year in the Panama Canal, trying to smuggle military hardware out of Cuba. The Pyongyang-based Ocean Maritime Management is also subject to an international asset freeze and a travel ban. Now, the monsoon season is behind us now in Korea, so we have to get ready for the intense summer heat wave, which is going to come over the next few weeks. Now, most summers, an unusually fierce heat wave will last a maximum of pretty much 1 week here in Korea, but experts warn global warming may make them much longer and the effects could be pretty disastrous. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
It's very hot and humid compared to before, and there are a lot of tropical nights.
It has gotten much hotter. I visit Busan regularly, and it's the same down there. I can feel the humidity. Levels are high.
In Korea, heat wave warnings are issued when temperatures exceed 33 degrees Celsius for 2 straight days. Usually a heat wave lasts for 10 days on average in Korea, but experts warn that period could get much longer in the coming years. The Natural Disaster Management Institute says heat waves could last for at least 1 month by 2020, which could potentially lead to the death of thousands of people. Here's a possible scenario. During the first week, the heat will cause droughts, and in the second, the first fatalities will be reported. As the week progresses, the number of people succumbing to the heat will rise, and the prices of agricultural and farming products will surge. Into the fourth week, temperatures could rise above 40 degrees Celsius, threatening the lives of some 10,000 people. Transportation could also be disrupted as tires are liable to explode and railway tracks can bend and buckle. In fact, in 1994, when the heat wave lasted for 30 days, over 3,000 more people died than average, and there were blackouts and a shortage of drinking water. Experts warn the damage could be worse now.
We will see problems in the farming sector due to a lack of water. In the manufacturing sector, power shortages will reduce the number of working days, which will hurt the economy overall.
The institute warns heat waves could linger for up to 50 days in 2050, but by then it could be too late to reverse the effects of global warming. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through some of the international headlines we're following this morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark. Just within the past couple hours, U.S. President Barack Obama announced America's widened economic sanctions on Russia, joining its EU counterparts that had released its sanctions list shortly before. And they go beyond travel restrictions and asset freezes this time. They span the energy, arms, and finance sectors. The economic sanctions will target some of Russia's biggest banks, including the Bank of Moscow, VTB, and the Russian Agriculture Bank. They'll be limited in their access to capital as EU citizens and banks will be banned from buying certain bonds or stocks issued by the state-owned Russian banks. President Obama said U.S. credit and financing for projects in Russia will be scaled back if not suspended altogether. Meanwhile, an EU arms embargo would block certain technologies and equipment from entering Russia. The coordinated sanctions come as Western leaders want to raise the cost to Russia for its support of pro-Moscow rebels in eastern Ukraine. Many believe Moscow created the conditions that led to the downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17, a charge Russia has denied. Israel's military pounded dozens of targets on the Gaza Strip early Tuesday, including the area's only power plant, after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his country needed to be ready for a long conflict. Among those targeted was a Hamas satellite TV station, Al-Aqsa, government offices, and a central mosque in Gaza City. The home of a top Hamas political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, was also demolished, though everyone in that home appeared to have fled prior to the attack. More than 100 Palestinians are believed to have died in the ramped-up Israeli airstrikes. Foreign pressure has been building on Netanyahu to rein in his forces, both U.S. President Barack Obama and the UN Security Council calling for an immediate ceasefire. But Israel wants Gaza's armed groups stripped of weapons, while Hamas and its allies want the Israeli-Egyptian blockade into Gaza lifted. Another knife attack in China in the restive Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. China's Xinhua news agency reports a mob of people in Shachi County attacked civilians, vehicles, and government offices with knives and axes on Monday. Cars were also set ablaze as police shot dead dozens of people in that gang. That number of killed and injured, though, in what's being described as an organized and premeditated terror attack is not known yet. A similar attack was observed in the county back in December. China's former security chief is being investigated for a suspected serious disciplinary violation, its state media reported. Xinhua news agency said the probe on Zhou Yongkang will be led by the Communist Party's corruption watchdog, confirming suspicions after the powerful former minister had been missing from the public eye for months. Several people close to Zhou had been probed for corruption in recent months. His investigation makes him the highest level government official to be probed for corruption in recent years. He was a member of China's top decision-making body, the Politburo Standing Committee.
And a good Wednesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the ongoing hunt for the new head coach of the South Korean national football team. Now on Tuesday, Lee Yong-soo, the head of the technical committee, was interviewed and talked about the current process. Now, Lee Yong-soo stated that starting today, he will meet up with the technical committee for 2 days and 1 night to talk about who they think is right for the head coach position. Now, he added that there are about 15 Korean candidates and 15 foreign candidates. Now, though he didn't reveal who they were, he did state that FC Seoul manager Choi Young-soo and Pohang Steelers head coach Hwang Sun-hong would be in the final list of candidates as well. And now staying with football, this time with the upcoming Asian Games in Incheon, with head coach Lee Kwang-jung trying to finalize the roster for September. The big question is whether or not Son Heung-min will be available to play. Now, the 22-year-old, who is currently in Korea with his club team Bayer Leverkusen for the upcoming friendly against FC Seoul set to take place later today, he expressed his desire to play for the Asian Games team this September. However, his club team has yet to comment on whether or not they will let him, stating that they did not make their decision just yet. Now, due to his young age, he is eligible to play on the Asian Games team without the manager using one of the 3 wildcards. And now moving over to figure skating. While things have been rather quiet since the retirement of Kim Yeon-ha, figure skating fans here in Korea still have their eyes on Park So-yeon and Kim Hae-jin. And on Tuesday, their latest program was revealed. Now, according to their agency All That Sports, Park So-yeon will perform to Introduction and Rondo Capriccio for her short program and Romeo and Juliet for her free program. Meanwhile, Kim Hae-jin will be performing to Porgy and Bess for her short program, while her free program will be Rhapsody in Blue. Now, both skaters who are just 17 years old will continue to be in the spotlight leading up to the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games. And now finishing things off with some Tuesday night KBO action. The Nexen Heroes crushed the Hanwha Eagles 18-3 with the NC Dinos all over Kia Tigers 7-3, and the LG Twins beat the Samsung Lions 7-6 in a close game. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Tucson Bears take on the Lotte Giants. And of course, going into the game here, a rather quiet game until the 4th inning when Kim Hyun-soo leads off with a solo shot to deep right field as Tucson takes a 1-0 lead. Now, 5th inning, more from Tucson. Kim Hyun-soo once again. This time an RBI double makes it 2-0 before the captain Hong Sung-hoon with a 2-run double to right center gives the Tucson Bears the 4-0 lead. Not done yet. Yang Yi-ji this time a 2-run single up the middle as Tucson now take a 6-0 lead. Now this leads to a 9-run 5th inning for the Tucson Bears as they managed to get 20 hits in the entire game, being the Lotte Giants 12-1 your final score. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good Wednesday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your weather update. Well, monsoon season officially ended as of yesterday, but due to atmosphere instability, there could be passing showers at times around the nation. But it should remain mostly sunny and very hot throughout the day. So heat wave will get more intense, and highs in some regions down south will soar to mid-30s, while the rest of the country will have a sweltering day today. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The morning low here in Seoul is starting out at 23, then the high will rise to 32, while Daegu will climb to 34, and Gwangju and Busan should have a daily highs of 33 and 31 under lots of sunshine. Now let's see how other regions are looking. Well, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 30 and 32, and Dokdo should see highs of 28, while Mount Kumgang reaches at 23 this afternoon. Again, it's going to be a very hot day today, so take good care of yourself to prevent heat stroke by drinking plenty of water and avoid sun exposure when the sun shines too strong. Well, that's all from me at this hour, and that's all for Korea. And here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
OK, well, those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about half an hour's time. We'll be back throughout the day with many more news updates and, of course, about the by-elections taking place today. I'll be back at 10 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.